All right, we are live. Finally, thank you for your patience. We are joined right now with Mark Sokol, Falcon Space, Phil Bichard, our good friend from Montreal, and Matthew Reif, Reif Technologies, Simon, and Luke, Sleeping Historia. How is everybody today?
Tired.
Sleeping.
And you muted yourself right when you try to say something, Bernie.
We had Mark in the space cap. Look at that. Mark doing some 3D printing.
Check this out.
It's pretty far out.
Hawthorne, New Jersey. When SpaceX is in Hawthorne, California, but we do have the SpaceX hat.
What happens when you lift the helmet down? Do you get special powers?
I could sense something coming through. Maybe that's the third eye.
Got to get a visor for it. But
with a helmet like that, you look like you got a third leg, mate.
Fucking clear visor, and it also messes with my head, so my hair.
Right, got the helmet hair.
Not space hair. That's what that is.
That's right.
Phil, how you doing?
Hey, pretty good yourself.
Good. Before we went live there, you're talking about how you just finished your paper and submitting it. Did you want to discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen and talk about for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Share screen.
Present at the bottom, yeah.
Entire screen, all right.
Oh, there we go.
So that's my experiment. For those that didn't see it yet, that's a liquid metal vortex that I'm working on right now. I bought the liquid metal from China, but it takes forever to get shipped. I required some assistance from a Chinese friend because to speed things up, let's put it that way. I'm 3D printing the apparatus at the same time. Hopefully that's going to be done this month. And I've got the whole electric circuit design ready. Everything is ready. Theoretically, I just need to put everything in practice and not short circuit the whole thing. So my experiment is ongoing right now, but it's slower than I expected. That's actually it's a strange timing because today I just submitted my manuscript to General Relativity and Gravitation Journal for peer review. I'm actually rewriting the whole astrophysics, the whole universe from the macro scale to the high energy physics. I talk about you can see the energy of accelerated particles here. There's a slight difference with relativity and finite theory. I'm talking about the gravitational redshift. I'm explaining the gravitational potential, all the physics. It's not just a mathematical abstract anymore. I'm explaining everything. The perihelion precession, disparity, the light bending. Here, the gravitational potential right here. It's very simple. The redshift here, it's all like algebra, calculus. I don't need tensor calculus at all. It's very simple. Here's the redshift, the gravitational redshift. Cosmological implication. The moon, there are there are anisotropies with the light there's a lunar laser ranging experiment. They send a laser on they send a laser on a mirror on the moon that is reflected back to the earth, and they notice that the light is not always going at speed c. So it's the motion of the planet can plays a role in it. So there's an anisotropy of the speed of light there, and it's been noticed at the macro scale with supernovas and all that stuff. So and here I'm calculating the correct distance we are from the moon using finite theory, and I calculate that we're 7 meters off what general relativity predict. I'm explaining the flyby anomaly, the invisible universe, the Planck linear mass density, the galactic rotation curve. I applied finite theory to 500 galaxies, and I get the exact rotation curve for each one of them. So it's right on spot. I've got like, this is just a sample here, but I've got a software that I wrote that processes 500 galaxies in 10 minutes, something like that. It's all C++ code. And here I calculate the distance we are from the universal core, the center of the real universe. I call it the universal core. Here I talk about the energy density. I calculate a whole bunch of important stuff with simple algebra. It's really high school algebra right here, and it's based on the mostly based on what was disregarded for so long is the gravitomagnetic and the gravitoelectric fields. You just interchange one with the other, and you can find the Hubble law, for example, is really just the gravitomagnetic field, and you can convert it into the gravitoelectric field, which is the gravitational acceleration, and you can retrofit the distance we are from the universal core from that. So it's very simple. I mean, it was very hard to figure out, but at the end of the day, it's very simple to represent. Here that's my experiment proposal that.
So you've essentially connected electromagnetic energy with gravity and mass, correct? Within the...
Yeah, I'm doing the analogy. Well, it's not an analogy. It's like I'm doing the. There's the electromagnetic force and there's the gravitoelectromagnetic force. The electromagnetic force. The gravitoelectric force is just regular Newtonian acceleration, like A equals G times the mass divided by.
So you're providing the groundwork essentially of bridging general relativity into electric universe theory.
Yeah, it's
that's pretty cool.
I don't invent anything, by the way. I'm just, these are all existing formulas. Here you can see I'm using the Newtonian acceleration right here at equation 118. And from there, I calculate the distance we are from the universal core. So, I really don't invent anything. I just revisit the fundamental equations. So but it's mostly based on. And I think the main equation, what you're asking is this equation. One sec. Yeah, this equation right here, 112. That's the energy density, the electromagnetic energy density. It's this formula right here. But I'm doing the exact same thing with the gravito-electromagnetic energy density, and I am able to solve a whole bunch of the size of the real universe. We are actually moving. The visible universe is moving, and we can already see what we see very far away is a bubble multiverse. It's other universes we are already able to see. So yeah, so we can see our own universe, but we can already see neighbor universes as well. So
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wish I have a presentation that I showed at APEC. Maybe people can check it out. I'll try to post the link again.
For sure.
And this is the ISS International Space Station experiment proposal. It's just the way it's just consists of doing the Michelson-Morley aboard the International Space Station, because the International Space Station goes 3 times the speed of sound, which is sufficient to measure a small discrepancy in the wavelength meter. So we should be able to see it, but the experiment is right there, and I've been proposing it for years, but I've been talking to
Never get a straight answer from NASA.
Yeah, well, I talked to the cases, the Center for Advanced Science, the group that handles the research on the International Space Station. I talked to them, but they said I need to pay like $500,000, and because it's too complicated for them, they can't really give me a grant for that. But it doesn't matter. They already have other ways here. It's so convincing, the theory. I already get the rotation curves right here. I got the earth tides and the flyby anomaly. I explain all that stuff. It's very simple to explain. So for me, in my head, it's not necessary, but to convince other people, maybe I'll need to do this experiment one day or the other. But for now, anti-gravity takes over, and it's more important, obviously. And yeah, but regarding the free energy, to go back on the main topic today's main topic, I figured out that the Larmor formula kind of converts accelerated ions into radiation. So if you have electricity in a coil, the electricity is constantly going to accelerate because it spins in circle. So it's going to create radiation, and I calculated that this should be pretty significant. So if you want to create free energy, it's not free energy, but it's a pretty significant amount of radiation. The radiation is going to be perpendicular to the coil as well, so it's going to be in a straight line, which is pretty great. You can do. I already know what to do with that. I will do the experiment one down the road myself, but I know exactly what to do regarding that. There's also the piezoelectricity that is pretty cool. It's kind of a ribbon of ribbon of diamond, some sort of diamond that creates electricity. Actually, I've got the presentation here.
I'm going to be showing you how.
Yeah, with this device here that just flips, he creates it. Actually, he's sending, and he's doing the opposite. He's sending an electrical current in the ribbon, and the ribbon kind of flips. He creates a fan with that. But you can do the opposite.
That's an electroactive polymer, right?
Yeah. You can do the opposite actually by flipping the ribbon. It's going to create electricity. So what I was thinking of is you put like tons of ribbon in the ocean at 45 degrees, and the waves are gonna, the internal waves are gonna constantly move the ribbon. So it's going to create electricity. So that's a pretty efficient way to create electricity. In 3 dimensions, it's not like just on the surface of the ocean, but you can go in depth in the ocean and take advantage of that. And I saw also that some guys, I didn't double check that. I'm not sure if it's true or not. But there's a group of people, they claim to be able to magnify electricity. Their website is called Tesla's powermagnification.com. They got a DVD and all that, so they claim to be able to amplify electricity like by 5,000 times.
Yeah.
5,000%, sorry.
They've been on like Aaron Maya Makamaxi, I think his last name. Aaron he works with Eric Pollard a lot, Eric Dollard a lot, and does a yearly convention where these two guys met, and that it has to do with the reshaping the electromagnetic field of the motors or the generators, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't check the theory at all. I think their name is Jim Murray and Paul Babcock. But I don't even know if it's patented, their stuff. Yeah, apparently it is. But just a heads up here. And there's also this cool new thing, 100 years of power using H2 boron plasma fusion breakthrough. I didn't go through this article, but yet, but it's pretty convincing. And last but not least, their Caltech, they have a satellite that is able to convert to beam down solar energy on the surface of the Earth. They're currently testing it, and they're pretty. They said, I think they wanted to commercialize it this year if everything goes well. So they have I don't know exactly all the technical details, but they have some way of converting the solar energy and beam it down on the surface of the Earth. So so
could either be really good or work out really bad.
Yeah.
Well, it's really efficient because it doubles as a weapon.
Yeah. Right? Like.
Yeah, so I want to share all that stuff, and hopefully I didn't step on anybody's toes here with my...
No, that was awesome, Phil. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Really good stuff. Well, I'm gonna I've got your paper downloaded that I'll give it to read over more in depth afterwards, and we'll talk more about this for sure. Have a follow up, as I'm sure Simon's also definitely going to be reading that as well as many others.
Yeah, but it's being peer reviewed right now, and peer review is very subjective. Sometimes they just because they don't like the color of your graph, you can be rejected. So, but I corrected it multiple times. I had help from Pablo in the WhatsApp chat, so he's very helpful, and William Ricken too. And but yeah, I'm pretty positive, man. It's gonna move forward, man. So hang in there. Yeah,
Nice. That's awesome, my friend.
cool. So yeah,
And
that was my
congratulations on the peer review.
yeah. Sorry.
Congratulations on submitting it for the peer review, and hopefully it goes well for you and they don't find a random excuse to hate it.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm pretty optimistic because I cover everything, man. I don't neglect anything. I talk about everything, so I'm pretty optimistic.
That's the best way to be.
Yeah. So yeah, that was. If you guys have any questions, go ahead. Otherwise, we can move on to the next the next candidate.
Yeah, Mr. Mark, you were doing you've got someone helping you with setting up some extra coding, you were saying down there today, and what else are you working on at the shop? Oh, you're muted. Sorry. You got it.
You want to get a good view.
Oh,
To the camera.
there we go.
Okay. You can hear me, see me? Okay, perfect. So what's happening here at the lab is a bunch of things. We recently got in some new equipment in our quest for anti-gravity research, and that includes this new drill press over here. The old one was way too wobbly, and it's already been sold on Facebook Marketplace to somebody who needed it. And right here we got what's called a spin lathe. Now, these are very uncommon beasts. It's almost a dying art of pressing a piece of metal against a mandrel, which is this in this case, and forming it into that shape. So this would be a saucer shape. Here's an example of something that's been spun, not by me, but this is metal that has been spun. And as you can see, get that flying saucer shape. You need a spin lathe to do it properly. And one of the interesting things that happens when you spin metal like this, the way the electrons flow through the material changes because the crystalline structure is warped by the spinning motion. Over here, we have some of the tools that are used for spinning. It's basically just a block of metal and you press against it. Back over here is another form. This one has a little bit that can rotate with the metal as it's rotating. And here's some of our early fuck ups, and they came out pretty bad. That was before we watched the instructional video.
Is no one going to comment on the fact this guy has Captain America shields just littering this workshop?
And calling them fuck ups and garbage, right?
Yeah, he's just flinging about vibranium, it's another mistake.
You need a decal maker to go along with that, Mark, so you can, for your son, give him the helmet and the shields.
Any fuck up that doesn't result in someone getting hurt is fine by me.
Can I actually have a Captain America shield, please, Mark?
Yeah, you can have one of them if you come to the lab, though.
Where's the lab? Is it
New Jersey?
SpaceX is in Hawthorne, California. We are in Hawthorne, New Jersey. We're the SpaceX of the East. And we are looking towards space in a different direction. We're trying to get to Mars, but without rockets. And trying to make rockets obsolete through anti-gravity.
Okay, so this is my new GoFundMe. Get me to New Jersey so I can have a Captain America shield.
Right? And
You know what? Here's the greatest.
put Luke to work at the lab. Absolutely.
You can make the Captain American shield yourself.
Oh yeah, I want to make my own shield.
You make your own shield on the machine, okay?
Question: can you use those like fuck up ones and like remelt them into a alloy? Like add some bismuth to the aluminum and copper, stuff like that.
But we have something better to do with them. We're going to be going to I'll get to that in a little bit. We're doing a fair this summer. So here is our other lathe that was set up within the last 2 weeks. This is a metal cutting lathe. People are more familiar with this type of lathe, which just rotates and then you come in with the part and cut it. We're middle of making a fitting for our high vacuum pump. Unfortunately, it did not come with the right fitting, so we have to make ours out of brass. And that is what we are going to do. And just lying on the floor over here is something just arrived. This is a 10 megahertz to 20 gigahertz signal generator. This thing, when it was brand new, cost more than a house. I mean, when it was new in like the early 2000s, probably cost over $100,000.
That is absolutely amazing and super jealous. And that's one of the main topics that we want to discuss is signal generators and putting them through different coils. And that is what Mr. Matthew Reif is a specialist in. And that
we're doing something different with these. We're not putting them through.
There's many things to do with them. I want to use them to put into my electrolysis electrodes.
I think the real amazing thing is that you could buy a house in New Jersey for $100,000. Fucking hell! In England, that would get you a very lovely cardboard box.
Maybe 20 years ago when this thing was new. Yes. And the dollar was worth a lot more. This is
Before
a pile
2008.
This is a pile of wood that all this equipment came in pallets, and we chopped it up into firewood.
So that's for the summertime bonfire, springtime bonfire.
Yeah, that when fire pit season comes around, we're going to be ready for it. So that's pretty much what's happening here with new equipment. Now the signal generator that I showed you earlier is for our dynamic nuclear orientation setup. We're trying to orient subatomic particles by a process called dynamic nuclear orientation, which is essentially electron paramagnetic resonance, but with a little tweak. It involves two components: a standing magnetic field, which is provided by a massive electromagnet, which is inside of our Faraday cage over here. See that electromagnet? And then that provides the homogeneous magnetic field. There's our logo. And then the RF comes in perpendicular to that magnetic field and perturbs the valence electrons, which are processing based on the strength of the magnetic field. So the stronger the magnetic field, the higher the frequency of their precession. And when you get those both in perfect tune or just out of tune with each other, you're able to change the spin of the electron. And through the hyperfine coupling that connects the electron spin to the core of the atom, you're able to tickle the core of the atom and change its orientation and slowly build up nuclear orientation in the subatomic particles, which make up the core of the atom, which we believe would make matter weightless. And that is what we're trying to accomplish here.
That's pretty epic.
Your name really checks out because everything I've seen so far is so cool.
It is so cool. Yeah, it's literally my last name. Sokol also means falcon. This is some of the waveguide equipment, and there's the test chamber. Right now we have it pulled out because Jesus was here earlier. Literally, the guy's name is Jesus, and he's gonna help us with this problem that I've had. So when I first made this got this experiment going, people were telling me I should automate it because it's going to take a long time to turn the knob to change the magnetic field. Because you don't change the RF, you change the magnetic field in these experiments in order to, find that resonance point. And I thought, that's so stupid. Why would I need somebody to make a complex system to help me turn a knob? But then I started to turn the knob. And it turns out in order to go through like the entire range of magnetic field profiles that you want to go through takes about 2 hours. And that means you're turning these tiny little knobs over here for 2 hours while staring at the scale readings. And your eyes start to water up and it becomes very hard to pay attention. It's kind of like watching grass grow, but in the winter.
It sounds like bleeding eyes at some point.
Yeah, it's not fun at all. I've done it for many hours, and I have lots of video evidence to prove that. I haven't posted any of it on YouTube because it is.
So, Mark, one thing we can do in the future is I'm going to be doing like a 48-hour weekend just science streams, and on the very least starting them on my Twitch account, as well as like combining some of my electrolysis ones, different like long range settling things and time things, etc. that we can work together, that if you want them recorded and up, you can be featured on some of them, no problem.
If we're doing something like that that's that long and there's other things going on, I could probably do a live stream with you, while we're running an experiment, because they're so long and they're so boring. Like you can just have something else going on at the same time.
Right, and I'd like to set up also like a 3D printer like workshop section with some of the guys. Like Faraday's doing it a lot. I believe, Matt, you've got one there too. They're essential in this field and just for any builder, inventor, engineer.
Yeah, I have like 8 of them.
Down in the back room over here, we actually have a 3D printer that's printing another one of those big. Let me see if Wi-Fi will make it.
Come on, Wi-Fi.
Only 12 hours left. And there's a sneak peek of the gravity diode machine. Okay, so this is the big that I was talking about earlier. Guys, if you're going to be in the New Jersey, New York area in the summer, June 3rd or June 4th, there is a UFO Alien Fest street fair in Pine Bush, New York. And we are about an hour's drive from Pine Bush, New York. So we're going to be setting up shop there and bringing a lot of our smaller experiments, including the cryogenics. We're going to have the liquid nitrogen, superconductors, gyroscopes. We're going to have different presentations of live experiments.
Mark, we lost your camera.
And here's one of the cool things. We're going to have, like those wheels of fortune where you can like turn it and get all different options. So we're going to have one of those. And for a minimum donation, you get to turn the wheel. And we're still figuring out what all the options are going to be. One of them is going to be Jeremy Reese plays a song for you. You get one of our lab fuck ups, like I showed you before. Those
3D prints. Oh yeah. The shields, 100%.
Yeah, you get one of our one of our failures. Well, we're gonna save them, bring them there, and you get the.
None of them are failures. They're just tests.
They're failing forward.
Test runs. Yeah, exactly. Test samples.
Sacrificial.
Just more shields for me.
Whatever you want to call them. Oh, and we're gonna have one spot on it. It's gonna be called osmium or bust, and you have to hit it 3 times in a row, and you get an ounce of osmium, which is one of the rarest metals on Earth. So
it's wicked, man.
Can I be like a guinea pig in one of your anti-gravity experiments?
I don't know
Right?
if you want to be really.
Be one of the first test pilots.
Yeah, for real. Can you just stick me in one of these chambers and just do some magic?
We'll lock you away in a Faraday cage.
That might be the only way to
first we
stop
have
me.
get
So
here.
yeah.
Are we gonna set up that GoFundMe so you can come down here?
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
we're
no,
always
yeah,
here,
we can start that. Yeah,
GoFundMe
if anyone
for
is
America.
watching, go. I'm sure Hippie is lurking somewhere around here, and she'll post my links to my Cash App. And if enough people send me money, I'll buy the ticket right now. In fact, I'll pack my bags on live stream and get the plane. That's how dedicated I am to getting this shield.
Just for the shield. Well, it's June 3rd, so we got some time. We still got a
Also the
couple-
gravity stuff, but you know, the shield really, but you know.
he wants a shield. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here to talk about your groundbreaking achievements, and also I hear you have a shield. You grifter league. I just want that shield.
Right, drift
I
in
want that goddamn shield.
I think it'd be if you want the shield so bad, maybe you'll get one shipped one day. One day.
That shit
got
looks
back.
so official though. Like literally, it looks like you throw that about. I bet you do. And when you're not on live stream, I bet you're throwing those things around the workshop, aren't you?
I don't know. The edges are probably sharp.
Yeah, they're probably pretty sharp. We have a lot of stuff going on actually at any given time here.
He says probably as if he doesn't know. He's like, yeah, it'll cut through a wall. I mean, maybe.
They are pretty sharp. They're about as sharp as scissors.
Ooh.
Spinning, flying at you. Not
right.
the
Who
way
wants to see me
want.
lose some fingers trying to catch one of these shields?
Oh yeah, between the two lathes, the spinning one is by far the more terrifying of the two. Just because
Well, yeah,
of
I'm
the
not going to
radius
stick
of
my
that thing
fingers in some
spinning around.
lathes. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous.
Oh, I got some questions. Do you got mass spectrometer down there?
I mean, wait, how much is shipping
we
from
lose
New
Mark?
Jersey? Maybe we're doing the wrong thing. How much would it cost to send me a Captain America shield? And that is presuming you can't just launch it and watch it fly across the Atlantic.
Portal it over the Atlantic.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? That's the true test of the shield, you know? Just
then it's a real Captain America shield.
Exactly. You know, fucking first class. See ya.
Yeah, it needs to like go out into outer space and come back in and.
So yeah, Mark, do you have a mass spectrometer run at your shop there? Do you do mass spectroscopy there?
Spectroscopy? No, we do not have one of those here. But we do have a clean room, and inside of it is a vacuum vapor deposition machine. So basically, vaporize material inside of a strong vacuum or a good vacuum, and the material then falls onto a plate substrate where you can deposit various materials. It has two separate heating baths, so you can do two metals at a time where you can layer them, you can alternate. So one of our last experiments, we were doing bismuth and magnesium, and bismuth again on top of these Lyra, the beetle wing things. And Jeremy Reese is posting that on Twitter as our latest attempt at metamaterials.
The bug. Wow, what's the name? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Lyra is the outer cover of the beetle.
Oh, the outer cover. Okay, not the inner.
That's our vacuum vapor right there. So that's pretty much what we have going on at the lab right now. And maybe I'll tune in next week and give you guys some more updates when we have some spun metal and some more experiments going on. But I definitely wanted to hit you up with that
Absolutely. And when you're spinning stuff too, always down for watching stuff spin and coming up with ideas with that and putting
Before you go, can we please see the Iron Man suits?
Iron Man suits. Oh, are you talking about the silver ones?
Yeah, we know you've got them. Don't you sit there and pretend you haven't.
Okay, so these are lead. That's for hard radiation. But for electromagnetic radiation, we have something really special. And this is you're not going to find anywhere else because these were handmade by a friend of mine. Check this out. This is literally a silver hoodie that goes all the way down. And this will protect you from...
The man's got me thrill.
I was gonna make the joke, but
it brings up the
Fucking Bilbo
question
Baggins over here.
was there more
He's
to
got his
those
me
old
thrill vest.
the old full metal suits? Like you're in a fully encased Faraday cage.
No, I love it. He's like, look at this silk. You wear this, you're protected from anything, heat, a dragon, anything.
Well,
If it got hot, you'd be screwed.
many ETs were seen wearing something that looked very much like this, like a metallic jumpsuit.
That's true, Mark.
And the most sane, logical explanation for it is, yes, they were wearing like literally this kind of material for the very reason that I'm wearing it, because their ship emits RF that can harm.
Radiation that they're having to have blocked in. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's RF radiation. It's high gigahertz because their ship emits those frequencies because it's using a similar technology to the stuff we're trying here at the lab.
So, I mean, in a really simplified way, it's kind of like flying a microwave and you're on the inside.
Exactly. But if you have to...
It's like, exactly. You don't want that, but that's exactly it.
That's pretty much it, yeah. But you don't want to be on the outside of that close up. Most people who have had close encounters with those flying saucers, like really close, have ended up with burns.
What's really interesting about that is if you go into the Ark of the Covenant story, so you know what, you were wrong. This did connect, right? When you look at apparently the Israelites that left Egypt, they followed the cart, and what they actually followed was a cloud. A cloud guided them, and when it stopped, they stopped. And this cloud apparently at night it emitted lights, and they were warned to not go near it, and people did go near it, and they got burned.
What it's called is the Amud Anan v'Amud Eish, a pillar of fire and a pillar of smoke. During the day, it looked like smoke, and at night, like a fire, because it was a cigar-shaped or pillar-shaped flying saucer that Jehovah, the extraterrestrial, aka God of the Israelites, was flying in. And they used some anti-gravity force field to split the sea. And one really cool thing from that story is the Egyptians were shooting arrows at the Jews, and those arrows came flying right back at them because the spaceship was in between. So there was some sort of force field going on there. But during the Vietnam War, at the demilitarized zone, the same thing happened, where they were shooting at a flying saucer that had gray aliens on board. They could see them through the portals with the large eyes. You know, it was just about less than 100 meters away. They shot at it with their guns, and the bullets came flying right back at the U.S. servicemen, killed some of them, and ended up capsizing the boat. And it was their bullets that were coming right back at them. But here's the craziest thing. Fast forward to 1995, in the 3M plant in Pennsylvania, they were unrolling rolls of plastic, which created a very large static electric field, and the same force field was seen in the equipment. Anything you threw at this force field would come flying right back at you. So, Scotty, power to shields. That's how it works.
That book also has sonic weapons in it, where they level an entire town after going all around it.
Yeah, exactly. That is I was just about to bring that up. Actually, the Ark of the Covenant. Well, as well, you've got to imagine. I think this is my view on that Ark of the Covenant thing is that it comes from one of the pyramids. It's kind of like your power source to that unit, and the Ark itself is kind of like the perhaps even just symbology wise a reference to the technology, because it's kind of like Prometheus with the fire that comes from God, the gift from the gods to man. And it kind of is that the Ark itself could be that gift of technology.
Yeah, and the old the tab that the 10 Commandments that were put in there are probably like some advanced technology, and when we finally are able to find it and open it up,
Well, so one aspect I always find fascinating is that the Ark of the Covenant is the exact same measurements as like the what they call the tomb or whatever, where the casket was supposedly in the king's chamber in the Grand Pyramid. So it's like, was the Ark of the Covenant the thing that powered the pyramid?
the Ark of the Covenant was what was made by. It was made at the base of Mount Sinai, which is in Saudi Arabia. Double Allah's. All of the gold and silver that the Jews got from Egypt was put together to make the tabernacle. I forgot the goldsmith's name that made it. But it was back in those days that they made it. It had nothing to do with the pyramids. And there's different reports. It either is in Jerusalem or it's in Ethiopia. But people who got close to the Ark of the Covenant suffered radiation burns, or they died of mysterious illnesses. At the latter days, the final days of the first temple, many of the high priests were dying when they would go in there. And there probably was some sort of radiation poisoning that was happening, like a lethal dose of radiation. So the technology eroded probably over time and eventually started leaking radiation sometime after Jehovah the alien died.
A fun fact for you guys is actually the Ark is
Mark,
in
do you want
Wales.
to close your phone and come back on your computer, and or did you want to stay on your phone, Mark?
Yeah, you can shut the phone off now.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is
Matt,
Wales is actually the source of the Ark of the Covenant now. So there's a place called UnMonetized in Wales, and the connection here is if you go to Egyptian hieroglyphs, you can actually decode them using the Welsh language, and like extremely accurately. So it's not like, something that's just happened by chance. The Welsh language is inherently linked to the Egyptian hieroglyphs. You could go as far to say that it's based off, like, literally they were speaking Welsh. So if you go to UnMonetized, which literally means isle or place of the Ark, Isle of the Ark is one interpretation, but that's literally what it means. It's a mound in Wales, in South Wales, where the Ark of the Covenant is buried. And you can follow the trail of the Israelites that came from Egypt all the way through Assyria to Asia Minor. They went to Troy in about 650 BC with Brutus and the people that left Troy. They went to the Isles of Lemnos. They wrote on some rocks in Etruscan, which is essentially Colburn, talking about their journey, and they boarded some boats there. They made a load of boats, boarded the boats, and they sailed to Britain, and they took the Ark with them. And that's where the Ark is. Well, yeah. I bring this up quite a bit. If there's lots of pyramids, there's probably lots of arcs. So the idea that, especially when you look at Tartarians, so in Syriac, Tartary means remnant, and they do claim to be remnants of the tribes of Israel. Now, this is a bit of a bone of contention because there's a book, can't remember by who, but it's called The 13th Tribe, which goes into detail about how the Khazars are actually an adopted tribe. That's why they're called the 13th tribe. They're not part of the 12th tribes. Basically, at some point in history, the Khazars had the opportunity to join the Christians or the Jews or the Muslims, and they decided that we're going to join the Jews. And
hey, Mr. Rant there. That's very fascinating, but we got to keep it on topic.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just...
Mr. Reif, would you please go into your presentation there if you want to bring it up and present? You both were going to talk about some hydrogen energy aspects, as I believe, as well as getting into the using the coils. And you're still muted there.
Forgot to unmute. All right, so with energy involved and everything that we've been talking about, I'm going to try to tie all of this together. First of all, I'm going to show you guys like a real quick history going from right now back in time about hydrogen-powered engines. And then I'll tie everything up as in where we're going to go to in the future. So here we have the Porsche water engine, and this is going to be Porsche's next engine that's coming out, and it's running on a high carbon based water that's only found in one place in the world, and I think it's in Chile. But you'll see right here, Porsche starts to use thin air and water replace gasoline, and Porsche starts to use thin air and water replace gasoline. Porsche's plant will produce green hydrogen via a process called electrolysis. Now, this is the motor that's going to be coming out very soon, the next line of Porsche. Then we can go back through history. Right here, this has been expired, but hydrogen fuel system for a vehicle. This is a patent. If you don't know how patents work, you make claims, you follow through on the claims. The FDA or the patent offices test everything, and if they have any issues, then they come back to you and say, hey, here's a problem. You need to be able to prove this. So they've obviously proved that this works. So right here's the entire patent, and let's just keep on going because this one was in 1995 whenever it anticipated expiration, and now it's expired for a lifetime. Then we can go to Smokey Eunuch Fierro, and he created a hydrogen engine and put it in his Fierro. Smokey's new hot air engine, the next step. So I can't remember exactly what he was doing, but he was breaking down the water molecules and breaking it into hydrogen and oxygen, and then having a combustible engine. So this is the Tony Allers who owns the Fierro now, and this was in 1986. Then we have Stanley Meyer. A lot of people know about Stanley Meyer because he created a water fuel cell, and he had a hydrogen and oxygen engine. Well, the water fuel cell and the car that it powered were found to be fraudulent by an Ohio court in 1996. And this, if I'm not mistaken, this is a guy who had Serbian, I believe, investors, went to his brother's restaurant, sat down, and then he ran outside of the restaurant screaming, "They poisoned me." So I don't know what that was, but then he just fell over dead, and it was found later that he had a heart attack. I don't know exactly what happened, but it seems like everyone who does this keeps on getting bodied, or they can never move forward with it. So here's another hydrogen fuel system for internal combustion engines. This is by Stephen M. Flessner and Eric Flessner. Now, this one, they've adjusted the expiration, but this is in 2004. The publication come out in 2006. 2007, it was granted. So why have they not done anything with this? Then we have hybrid electric vehicle having alternate power sources. A hydrogen fuel cell uses hydrogen to produce a direct current voltage. So they're using hydrogen to be able to, it was the guy that I'm going to go over here in just a moment. He created a system to where you can burn off hydrogen and it explodes in the water, and that water instantaneously becomes steam, and that steam will run the turbine. It's generating almost free electricity. Now, a lot of different people will say, well, it takes too much energy to be able to split the water molecule into H2O. So remember that whenever we talk about this guy, Andrija Puharich. Now, a lot of people know him by Henry Karel Puharich, and he has a great history. He was one of 7 to be born to Croatian immigrants. During World War II, he went to Northwestern University, and he was a student in the Army Specialized Training Program. He studied philosophy. He was also a parapsychologist, and he was an inventor. Because then he went to Northwestern School of University. He went to Oakland, California. He served as a captain in the Army Medical Corps. He went on to Edgewood Arsenal Research Laboratories in Fort Detrick. Then he ran into high-ranking officials or officers and officials, primarily from the Pentagon, CIA, and Naval Intelligence. And it all seems really weird because whenever you skip on down, let's see, Puharich was impressed by stories of Dutch psychic Peter Herkos. And in 1956, he went to investigate his alleged abilities. He ended up writing a book, I believe. But in the 1970s, Puharich claimed he had invented the effects of a low-frequency radiation beam that the Soviet Union had been testing. According to Puharich, the beam was based on the work of Nikola Tesla. Then right down here, he invented, 50-plus patents were devices that assist hearing in the means for aiding hearing. So essentially, he went on to go and help hearing. Then the methods and apparatus for improving neural performance in human subjects by electrotherapy. Now, I know a lot about Puharich because a lot of this stuff, even though this was in the 60s, whenever the next thing that he had, in 1983, is a method and apparatus for splitting water molecules. All of this stuff is in Roy's notes. So it's no coincidence that he had electromedicine and based off the work of Nikola Tesla, and it could be used as a weapon to control people because we all know that we are electrical beings. We have extremely low frequencies as considered as by definition, and we work upon electromagnetic fields. This is the reason that NASA uses PEMF devices, but they don't tell you about it. This is the reason that they have electrical devices in electromedicine, but they don't tell you about it. So we're going to talk about his method and apparatus for splitting water molecules. So you can see right here, this is a description of his system, and it talks about electromagnetic frequencies in this paper, and you guys can Google this or just pause and read it. But it says heat engines where water goes in as fuel and water comes out as clean exhaust. Basically the same thing that Porsche's doing with theirs because it's clean exhaust. So let's just jump on into this. Right here's his patent, 4394230, filed and approved July 19th, 1983. Now, this says amplitude modulated 90-degree carrier sine wave. And a lot of people say, oh, this is different technology than EMS, but it's really not because this up here is a function generator. It's a signal generator, and it uses electric to be able to do this. Now, you can read all through this patent, too, because it's right on Google Patents. Right here is his device to be able to separate the hydrogen from the oxygen and split that water molecule. Right here goes a little bit more into it. Component 3, the water section of the component, breaks everything down. So you got hydrogen plus hydrogen, then it goes into this, and it goes into H2O. So as you go through, you'll start to see a lot of things coming together. The unhybridized orbital intersection and water bond angle is 104 degrees rather than 90 degrees as predicted. Remember that number, 104. It's actually 104.5. So you have the hybridized methane molecule, the CH4. You can see it's 109.5 degrees. Hybridized ammonia molecule, the NH3, is 107 degrees. 104.5 is a hybridized water molecule. So they was thinking it was 109, and that would be the hybridized methane molecule. And then they figured out it was 104. It tells the whole story within this. So you even have all of you got your sine wave, and then you have your sine wave that is modulated. So this is like your carrier wave, and this is your data that's being sent through. Now, right here, it says very distinctly 1.3 volts of electricity is all it takes. And if you use this carrier wave and this modulated signal and build your glass tube, center electrode, all of this, it's a pearl chain formation of hydrogen gas bubbles in component 3 as seen from above. And it's very detailed, very clear to read, very easy to be able to do this. So keep on going through a little bit. And now we see the antenna that he used. You got the geometric tetrahedron. And if you look at my square, I don't know where I'm at on the screen. But
the tetrahedron. Right. Oh, sorry. Here, we can highlight you there.
So right here's the tetrahedron. And this is the shape that he would use because it's 104.5 degrees. So I'm going to go into that here in just a moment. Bernie, if you don't mind switching me back over on the screen, please.
Oh, yes, like this.
Yep. So methane overlap of spherical is orbital of the hydrogen with sp3 bonding orbitals of carbon. Results in equivalent sigma bonds, the molecular orbitals of. And it's talking about A and B. So as we go through, right here, you can see now it's 104.5 degrees, and this is the orbital model of the water molecule. The water dipole results from uneven charge distribution. So whenever you look at H2O, it was assumed that it was connected in a straight line, but it's not. We're going to hit that in just a second. So here's a little bit more into depth about, the continuous tapping, the region of hydrolysis. So all of this, and this is the last page, sheet 11 of 11. This is very detailed. This is very easy. It only takes 1.3 volts of electricity to be able to split the water molecule and get 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen atom. Now, whenever I moved here to this area, I was like, oh, you know what? Everybody who builds a hydrogen engine always ends up getting bodied. Maybe I'll just build a hydrogen-powered boat, put a solar panel up on top, put a couple of batteries up underneath the deck of the boat. You can essentially run around the world. And it's unending. It's kind of like what they're saying about this nuclear submarine or the nuke that they have, that it's essentially you can just go forever. But right here's the water molecule, specifically 104.5 degrees. So why is this important? It's important because resonation, or whenever you have like a resonant frequency within the body, then that's whenever you're affecting that within the body, because you have to have these resonant frequencies, everything else. So the same thing is done whenever you do, a dipole antenna and you're wanting to split apart a water molecule. You need to be able to build that shape so that you're going right in at the same degrees that it's connected at. So, and this is just this quick history up on the hydrogen car, but let's look at the future. Here we have, and this is obviously just photoshopped or computer generated, but the USS Nimitz 2004 Tic-Tac UFO JPEG. So I want you to pay attention to the shape of the Tic-Tac. I don't know what these things are on the bottom. Maybe it's just ionized jet propulsion. Maybe it's something to pick up on positively charged.
Going back to hydrogen and like the Hindenburg and all of the former airships, it's like, are we missing something? Did they actually advance instead of just disappear?
Yeah, and so you take the Hindenburg, look at the shape of it, look at the shape of the UFO, and the reason I say this is going back to the water, it's 104.5 degrees of separation to be able to kind of wedge right in and rip that molecule apart. So whenever you're wanting to fly through the air and there's oxygen in the air, if you make something that oscillates at the same shape, like, say, an oxygen molecule. It resonates with it. You're able to break free from it. You're able to do all these different things and to be able to overcome your boundaries because you fit within those boundaries. And if you up your amplitude more than what it has, then you're able just to break free. So if we take that into consideration whenever we go into time dilation, or even what Mark was talking about, I've seen those videos of the two electromagnets, and they're really awesome because it just forms right on that electron, and you can be able to turn it like he was saying. But I think if he studied the structure of electrons a little bit more, then he's able to break free of that electron, whatever that bottleneck is holding on. So keep that in mind whenever you're working on that, Mark, because, I mean, all of this is just resonant frequencies. I do the same thing with the nitrogen molecule, and I can split the nitrogen molecule apart, and I create fertilizer out of the nitrogen that's in the air. And that's like a little spin that I've put on electroculture, a few other things. And this is how I do a lot of my work is I go through patents and I see things and I notice the patterns, and I'm saying, what's stopping them? What is stopping them? They've had this stuff since the 20s because this stuff is in Roy's notes as well. So if we're going to move on to UFOs and flying saucers and spacecraft, then they're obviously going to let us now have hydrogen engines, but still keep a little bit of restraint on it and say, well, why don't you just say it's highly carbonized or carbonated water, whatever it is, water containing a lot of carbon, and then you can build your motor because it has zero emissions when it comes out.
Matthew, I'm totally, that was amazing. Totally for the hydrogen idea. Just a hydrogen fuel cell probably is the way to go for any spaceship, just like we had on the space shuttle, because lithium batteries are deadly if they go wrong. But if you're dealing with hydrogen fuel cell, your byproduct is water. And if you're stuck in outer space waiting for a rescue mission, having water is a great thing to have.
Well, what I want to do next time is I want to talk about space and to be able to do anti-gravity and travel. And I know these are tetrahedrals. These are actually called painter pyramids or something. But I'm going to be printing out regular pyramids, and I want to show you guys what I believe that has been described are these UFOs that are flying, because it's a cube shape. And that cube shape is surrounded by a force field of some sort that they can see. And this goes back onto electrostatic as well, and how you can break free of the bonds of gravitational waveforms, and why I believe it works, how it works, and just theorize up on that and let other people run with it, because that's what it's all about. This is the reason they can't let us have a free energy, because if you have to pay for your energy, you're not going to waste it. And they tell you it's too much energy to be able to do electrolysis. It costs more than what it is to put into it to have a water molecule split. But we see right there, the patent office has already confirmed it only takes 1.3 volts of electricity to be able to break free of this. Now, this splitting of the water molecule can be used, as I was talking about, in power plants to be able to turn turbines. You can use it in water heaters. You can use it in space heaters, and you can even use it in just many, many different things, but you can especially use it for desalination of salt water. So therefore you can build a boat that runs on salt water, be able to capture that hydrogen and oxygen, and be able to mix it all together and run a combustion engine off of that.
I absolutely agree with all of that. And sorry, I have on screen right now a 11-year-old video of some guys that show how they've modified to make their truck a hybrid hydrogen vehicle, and that literally they're just using a couple of jars with the water and the intake into the injector with the hydrogen from there.
You should really put on the video that Aaron Salter Jr. made right before he died, because his setup looked very simple, and it's all in a box, very just concise.
Do you have a link for it in the private chat, Mr. Simon?
I will look for it.
Thank you, sir. Oh, welcome, Miss Julia.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hey there.
A good day. We are currently watching how to turn water into part of your fuel for your vehicle.
Oh, nice.
Design. Don't be disillusioned by how fancy this looks, because very simply you can get 3 faceplates of high-grade stainless.
Sorry, he had music. I'm not gonna let that play. Don't want to get a copyright strike, but basically just
So
anode.
Matthew, you were talking about the break-in electron bonds to free up nitrogen and stuff. What we're doing over here is hitting resonance nodes and trying to make subatomic particles, the protons and the neutrons in the core of the atom, oriented. And we believe by doing so, we'll make the atom weightless. One way to look at it is you got to first understand why mass weighs anything in the first place. And most scientists won't have an answer to that. Where does mass actually come from? Well, we know it comes from the core of the atom. And in the core of the atom is all these subatomic particles, which are essentially electromagnetic energy that's spun in on itself. And when something's spinning rapidly, it's a gyroscope. At least in the macroscopic world, that's a gyroscope. And gyroscopes are free to move along their plane and along their axes. But if they're changing if you want to change their wobble, their axes, that's when you have a restriction. Now, the rotations that are happening in the core of the atom, they're not just pointing in one direction. That's how they're rotating. They're wobbling around in many different axes of rotation simultaneously. Now, when you move something that is rotating like that in so many different ways, you move it through space-time. You change its acceleration in some way, shape, or form. You're inevitably going to change some of its spins, because it was in the middle of doing that spin and then you pushed it in that direction. Now that wobble is going to change. So when you take a baseball, you throw it, every atom that makes up that baseball, all the subatomic particles in those atoms, their complex spins are being changed. That is where inertial mass is being stored. That's where momentum comes from. Now,
well, if you take an atom and you look at it, you have 4 different axes that the electrons spin on, but you're only using one axis with those electromagnets. I would suggest putting up 4 different axes in the same.
No. What we're trying to do is orient the subatomic particles in the core of the atom.
Okay.
The electrons don't carry the mass. The electrons are a stepping stone to get to the core.
So you got to break free of the electrons. So if you
we're not trying to break free of the electrons. We're trying to use the connection, the hyperfine coupling between the electrons and the core to manipulate the core.
Okay.
And orient the subatomic particles in the core. And if you have something that's perfectly oriented, it will be free to move just like a gyroscope along its plane and along its axes without the restrictions of inertial mass. If it wants to change its orientation, it will do so slowly because it will take the equivalent amount of mass, inertia to change it, which is why so many flying saucers are seen changing their orientation, because that's the slow part of the flight.
So this breaks into physics a little bit, or a lot actually.
A lot, yes.
Whenever you're doing this, read the CE5 CIAD class, because it talks about this. They've determined that if they can get everyone on Earth to resonate at the same frequency, then they're able to take this Earth and be able to transport it into a different realm. This goes into the 4th dimension, to where you can have 2 universes being able to simultaneously take up the same space, but they will not be aware of one another. So that's the reason they want to change the resonance of everybody on Earth and have them at the same frequency, and then they can tune into a different universe like that, like a different, you know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. It's very.
So in the fourth dimension, it's saying that these
What's
two
the fourth dimension?
tetrahedrons can actually take up the same spot because atoms are made up of 90% nothingness, right? And this is the reason they can't explain like the weight or anything else upon it, because they don't realize how it works. Whenever you look at men who stare at goats, that's a true movie. And the guy that was over, I think it was a fort in Kentucky. It wasn't Fort Knox, I can't remember, but that general would get up from behind his desk every day and try to walk through the wall because of the theory that atoms are made up of 90% of nothingness. Only 10% has any kind of mass or anything else. But every time he would get up and try to walk through his wall, he would run right into the wall and fall down. And then he would get up and walk out of the door. So all of this stuff is on the films that are in the military. They have recordings of all of this happening.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's trying to manipulate mind, telekinesis. The reason why you can't walk through a wall is not because of the atoms; it's because of the electron fields.
Covalent bonds, is that correct? Or what type of bonds is it?
Yeah, well, the bonds are what holds things together, but the static repulsion is what keeps you from falling through your chair right now and into the center of the earth. It's not the reason why anything. The reason why this copper thing is the color of copper. The reason why this is red is not because of the atoms. It's because of the electron fields around it.
It's because that's what it resonates with. This is what Roy found out with the prismatic virus microscope, is that whenever he shines a light through that quartz lens and it separates that light, he could look through the universal microscope and see the viruses and see which light that they're reflecting, and he would know the resonant frequency of that virus at that point.
But the same is, everything has resonant frequencies. Yeah. Every single material, and the resonant frequencies are dependent a lot on the electrons. And the electrons can then manipulate the core of the atom through the hyperfine coupling. And that is what we're trying to do, because the atom is where the mass is. The electrons are what dictate its is it alkali? Is it acid? Is it white? Is it red? Is it blue? Is it black? The electrons dictate that, but they don't dictate the mass. The mass is hidden in the core of the atom. And the core of the atom is what we have to manipulate in order to get rid of the mass or hide the mass, which is what we're trying to do with this dynamic nuclear orientation shtick.
Well, what type of atom, what material are you using to orient? Is there any specific material?
There's way too many materials. There's way too many samples that we've had recommended to us that we haven't tried yet. The problem is that it takes over 2 hours to run each test. We're trying to automate that system right now so we can speed that up. But right now we have over close to 100 samples that are waiting to be ran, Phil. So if you have anything to add to the list, we'll just have to throw it into the sample metals box, Alzheimer's samples box over here, and it'll have to wait its turn as soon as we get this machine going a little bit faster.
How long do you think it's going to take to set it up properly?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Simon C's asking me what my opinion is on hybrids, like hybrid electric vehicles.
Sure, that's what I was asking about.
You know that I ran a company fixing hybrid vehicles for 10 years, right?
No, I did not know this.
Yeah, this is how this is my first company that I started called Falcon Hybrid. Formerly Prius Rebuilders. I worked with nickel metal hydride batteries, refurbishing them. I built the equipment to refurbish them. This shop that we're in right now is literally used to be a battery refurbishment shop for hybrid electric vehicles. Very familiar with the technology. The batteries are from the 1980s. They were invented in the 1980s. And unlike nickel cadmium batteries, which have a very strong memory effect. That means that if you charge it from 20 to 80% and back and forth, it'll sort of start to assume that the 20% is 0 and the 80% is 100. That's kind of what the memory effect is. Nickel metal hydride does have a little bit of that memory effect, but not to the same extent that cadmium does. And what we did was erase the memory effect and then match modules together to have a balanced pack for running your hybrid vehicle. And they're a great gas saver. They're basically regenerative braking. It's basically a gas engine with regenerative braking. And I have a hybrid pickup truck with a RV attached to it, one of the few left in the world. Yeah, I love hybrids, but electric is much better.
Cool, thanks.
Sorry about that.
I've never seen this video.
It's pretty decent, actually. Independent
A lot
journalist.
of people went and saw it. If they didn't like the people, they wouldn't run it. But they
I
liked
found
it.
a
Some
link
friend
to
went
that
there, so
other one,
they
by
go,
the way.
"Oh, you're cool. You're representing the people that are going to buy it. You guys have money," and so they ran the engine for them, and they had
Okay,
it
we'll
locked
play a
in their
little bit
building.
of this Stanley Meyer one, and then
You
we'll
couldn't
take
get into it.
that one.
Couldn't steal it. They just ran it around this room upstairs. I don't know, around in circles. That's kind of funny.
You have 2 parts oxygen, 1 part hydrogen. So if you could control and split the oxygen from the hydrogen, and then basically smack it, do the voltage and the current in his supporting circuits, then now you have high output of hydrogen, say it's the combustion at that point, but now yields 1,800 times the power, and now you deliver that much more power to your load, and off you go. So you're taking water, separating water by some electronic ingenious ways of doing it, that he did here in his patent, and you got an engine that's running on water.
So the wave is square. So what you want off, on, has to be this off, on shock. So you spin the molecule in a parallel spin state. So all the cells are proton, neutron are spinning like this on our bodies and everything. But we're putting it in a parallel state.
You know, like a regular conventional car, you have, pollutant and carbon monoxide. Here is basically, there's no carbon monoxide. It's fantastic for the environment without using traditional fossil fuels. Man, you want to go out and get this vehicle yourself? And just think of the cost. There's no cost in water. It's natural part of the earth. I mean, water is all over. It's abundant.
The implication is that the Holy Spirit told him what to do in response to his prayers. Well, I can't judge that aspect, but unless there is some amazing source of cosmic energy, this is impossible. Stanley Myers. I listened to his presentation at the conference in 1992, and I would say it is indeed outlandish. The fact is that our common knowledge of the first law of thermodynamics is absolutely violated. Well, the first law of thermodynamics basically says in a simple form that the amount of energy going into a system cannot be smaller than the amount of energy going out, but it will go out as effective energy that we wish, mechanical energy, heat, whatever, or losses occur, which typically end up as thermal energy. But basically that you cannot put in a little bit and get out a lot. That is impossible according to the first law of thermodynamics.
At first they say, nah, this can't happen. It doesn't work. There's no way this thing could work. And he goes, well, yeah, it does work. I'll give you ammo on my dune buggy. I have some modifications, but, there's no tricks here. And I'll show you guys. Come down and take a look at it. Well, if you don't want to take a look at it, I'm sure other people might be interested, especially the general public, and maybe the government might look into it too. So, I invite everybody to come and let's have a discussion. So of course, a company like an oil company is going to absolutely trying to deny, saying it's not ever going to work.
The only argument you could have possibly is if some unknown new form of energy is utilized, and the implication is that the Holy Spirit told him what to do in response to his prayers. Well, I can't judge that aspect, but unless there is some amazing source of cosmic energy, this is impossible.
Lysol laundry disinfectant eliminates germs detergents leave behind. Lysol.
That's what happens when you don't use Twitter.
Oh my God! I thought that was that woman with your voice.
Longitudinal energy. I don't understand it totally, but I have a feeling, science will just cut you off. They just say, no, he can't. It's impossible. He can't run that IC engine.
Indeed, there has been here at the University of Toronto and in many places research done on what was called at one point the hydrogen economy, so that we don't pollute. We use hydrogen as a fuel, we get water as a product, and therefore there is no pollution. I mean, it all sounds very nice, but it has very severe problems. It is explosive. It has to be contained. And containing it means a very low temperature and an extremely high pressure, or you can't contain it. And of course, if your vessel explodes.
I just paused it there to point out that they try to sell you on that you have to have high pressurized hydrogen instead of the fact that there's the technology to turn it from water and inject it straight in as hydrogen into fuel on the site. And then you don't have to ever worry or deal with that issue of the high compression or explosion properties of storing pressurized hydrogen.
Yeah, and if you read through that patent I was showing, then you'll see that the oxygen and the hydrogen separate into two different chambers, and then you have your mixture ratio that would literally somewhat be like a carburetor mixing fuel with oxygen to be able to throw it in. And whatever you don't use, you can throw outward into the atmosphere. Then you have hydrogen and oxygen in the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like you were saying when you're doing that presentation, how they literally every place has the patents at least a decade or 2 decades old, and it just disappears, gets shelved. Yet they all claim, oh, this hydrogen energy revolution that's coming, but they never develop it or bring forward, even though the technology and the discovery breakthroughs have been made.
And so they have to keep us into a certain realm and work on what they want us to work on. Now, if you look at the Industrial Revolution, that's somewhat exactly it's somewhat what we're going through now, to where there's a lot of upset, there's a lot of turmoil, and it was a hard switchover because people were set in their waves before the Industrial Revolution. Now they're opening up to this industry because they want to move on to the next phase. We're now going into more of the energy revolution and being focused upon energy versus manufacturing.
I agree. Sorry, I'm just gonna skip it ahead here because there's some crucial parts that I think you, especially Matt, will enjoy as it goes into the same aspects of the science that you were showing earlier with Raymond or Royal's design there, and how it splits the hydrogen, same as Stanley Meyer's technique, I believe, or very similar.
Soda to make the water conduct electricity. So far, it's very, very basic science. It's high school science. Now, when you put 12 volts into the water, it starts doing something called electrolysis, splits the water into hydrogen and oxygen. Now, you take that hydrogen and you throw it into the engine, any engine. It could be a lawnmower, it could be a big truck, anything in between. You throw it, it's like throwing a match. And it makes the fuel there burn better than what the car engineers have done. That's all it is. It's just you're making it better by this little addition. The hydrogen makes the fuel burn better. And that's how we increase the mileage. We don't increase the mileage from 100%. We just take the 20, the miserable 20 that we get from these shiny cars, and we improve it a little bit.
We'll have a little bubbler tank. After that, this goes into the air filter box. It dries the gas. It took a while, but I get 24 miles a gallon now. And I can use a cheaper gas because this is adding 130 octane. It just cleans your engine. Your engine cleans up. It'll run cooler. The oil changes are less. Your spark plugs are clean. It cleans your whole engine out. Everybody just goes, man, you take the spark plugs out and they're like brand new.
You call it water fuel, but it's not a liquid. It's really a gas. So what is this gas made up of?
The gas that we're producing is a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. You get some kind of a gas that has 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. So we got HHO. It's not water. It's not vapor. It's not like you vaporize it. It's a fourth state. And it will revert to water after it burns, which is the nice thing.
And I believe that thinking of the combustion reactions, which involve carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, in various versions, you can have many paths how a reaction occurs. And therefore, if you can inject into your gasoline some hydrogen, at the high temperatures of combustion, that hydrogen can break down and water can break down, giving you activated ions or molecules or atoms, and these will indeed influence the reaction path so that the reacting efficiency can be indeed higher. So I'm prepared to believe that adding small amount of water or oxygen and hydrogen.
I want to give a gift to the listeners and watchers of this show, and I prepared a special download of all the information. You just go there, all the information is there, how to download it, what to do with it, for creating a hydroxy system.
The death of inventor Stanley Meyer is suspicious, to say the least. Unfortunately, the hard evidence to prove he was murdered simply doesn't exist. Now, that doesn't mean he wasn't murdered. It just means we can't prove it. We do, however, have Meyer's patents. They're available online for anyone to see, and hopefully, one day, someone may be able to duplicate Meyer's device, assuming they haven't been frightened off by his untimely and suspicious death. I believe that it's quite possible Meyer's device was not in violation of known laws of physics, but rather, he was simply tapping into a previously unrecognized source of power. Imagine running an automobile on distilled water. No more gasoline, no more wars over oil. Do you think Big Oil would stand for it? In the meantime, we have commercially available kits like the ones at...
Sorry, I must have missed the section that he was going more in depth with, or it was a different video. Anywho, Matt, you still there? Welcome, Anthony. Oh, sorry, Anthony. Yeah, you still got... Anthony, when I unmute you, have crazy interference. Do you mind trying to leave and come back in again? Must be a bad connection. Matt, you're also muted at the moment.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to talk right now.
But yeah, that there's a couple different ways, and that getting into Royal Rife's different technologies and how he was using these different EM waves, or like the resonant frequencies of stuff, and building technology around it, essentially, like the microscope and the plasma tube Rife frequency stuff is just fascinating. And that the fact that you're showing that he also had a hydrogen electrolysis unit patent, like that definitely needs to be brought forward and developed and put in.
Yeah, 100%. All of this stuff needs to come out, and over time it will. It just takes access to resources, and then we all know that you probably have to not bribe, but buy people. You know, just
well, The thing with this, with hydrogen or HHO, H4, whatever it turns out to be, if people are able for some fairly reasonable or affordable price to switch their already existing fuel cars into like a hybrid that just uses water, the incentive is already there for the vast majority of people, because that is also would be free energy, but also green energy. And that with how insane the energy market and petrochemicals and everything have become over the last couple of years, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, there's no downsides to it except for a lot of corporations not being able to afford their favorite politicians.
Well, it's that it's the social or geopolitical and geoeconomical situation has almost now evolved to where it is acceptable, because they need to replace half of their fuel that they just cut off from Russia and don't want coming out of there anymore. That they both want to shift to this green energy, as well as the claims that hydrogen is the future, that now would be the time where they're looking for the realistic replacement of the gas and the oil from Russia and the East, essentially.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the same thing as splitting the nitrogen molecule and making fertilizer, because a lot of our fertilizer came out of Ukraine, and now we're going to be short on that. And you got Monsanto that's already made aluminum resistant plants like corn altogether. So all of this stuff kind of comes into play, and that's the reason I'm doing everything that I can to be able to fight against these industries and slow roll out technology to different companies to then just boom it out to everybody. Because when you start a revolution, you want to be able to have it in place, have everything set up and be able to speak for it, show the proof of concept, show the actual results of it, and then send it out to everyone to where they all realize, hey, this stuff has already been legitimized by these different corporations. It's been in use for years. Why is no one talking about it? Just like nobody's ever talked about these patents on hydrogen engines.
Yeah. And with your presentation there, the CH3, was it, or CH4? That was the Tetra.
So we got NH3 and we got CH4.
Yeah, both of those chemicals or compounds are essential ones in the Keshe Foundation and in Keshe's GANs, which is not just another acronym for these monoatomics, and that the NH3 one is his essential what he calls plasma state, or these monoatomic state for agriculture and for fertilizer. And the CH4 one is another one that he mixes in the agricultural end, as well as some of his healing aspect ends of the fields. So just huge parallels there that you're bringing forward with it.
Yeah, it's all kind of syncing up together because everything works in conjunction with one another. And after you find out one solution, like I was showing on the 104.5 degrees of separation whenever it comes to the water molecule of H2O, that you can apply this to many different things and you can break free of a lot of different bonds that they have you under. So if you read through all of the patent, BurnEye, I think that you can figure out that you can build the tetrahedron shape and be able to split it if you separate it at 109 degrees.
In 109 degrees. Okay, so just over boiling.
No, 109 degrees of
separation. Angle. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the resonant wave angle, I guess, or frequency.
Yeah, in fact, I will send it to you in the chat.
How do you measure that? How can you measure the bond angle?
Do you have an answer for that one, Bernie? Because I don't know.
Measure which angle?
The bond angle that he mentioned of hydrogen?
So you were, Matt showed it as like the structure in the H2O, was it? The
Right.
water or the other
I've seen the diagram, but I've never heard of how it was measured.
Yes,
Oh,
I don't
is my
know
audio
how
okay?
I think he's talking about how it's actually bonded together and what degree of
Right.
separation those
Right.
atoms are in.
I got that. Just how did they know what, whether it was like 105 or 109 degrees? How could they possibly measure that?
Probably in the geometry, which, welcome back, Mr. Mark. Like Walter Russell's octaves of the periodic table, as well as his octaves in the spiral vortex periodic table, could show the geometries of where they're in. Would be one potential way.
What does it change?
The shape of the structure of crystallization and solidification of the matter, and whether it's tetrahedral, cubic, octahedron, dodecahedron, isocahedron, etc. Sorry, struggling.
Right, I got you.
But yeah, that depending where in the octave of whether it's left or right or minus or plus, up to the, I think they're threes, or is it fours there?
I think that would change reactivity too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And it's giving extra ways of identifying the family and the traits of these elements in their different bonds and states. There's a whole bunch more.
And Bernie, if you, I put it in the private chat, those 2 pages that talk about like the tetrahedral shape and the degrees of separation. And if you study through that patent, that's what I'm saying. I think that you'll find that you can use the same process to be able to do like the CH3. I forget.
Oh, so then this would be the cymatic frequency, the cymatic pattern energy that you'd be putting in. Okay, it's making sense to me now. I get it. It's the shape of the cymatic frequency you'd be putting into the reaction.
Yeah, they had to adjust that because they thought at first it was 109. Then they adjusted it to 104.5.
Oops. So the same one. Sorry, one sec.
Here's the link to the whole patent.
Oh, thank you, Anthony.
I guess we sent that over too.
Oh, is my audio okay now? It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good. Very good. Was that oh, here we go. I think this one.
Boy, that really looks like Stan Meyer's stuff.
It essentially is the same sort of technology. Where's this Stan? This is Royal's patent or Stan's patent?
That's what's his name? It's Puric.
Pure. Okay.
Puharic.
I couldn't come close to saying that.
It's tough, man. It's Henry Puharic, but he's got a totally different name as well. His birth name was Andrija.
Oh, okay.
And it was spelled differently as well. But he has a very nice history upon everything that he's accomplished. And you could tell he was a very intelligent man who held him, he held his integrity and his dedication to the U.S. very high. because he was the child of immigrants, Croatian immigrants, I think. And he's had a lot of successes in his life. And I think that's the only reason he was able to get a patent. And he's proved all of this work. That's the only way that a patent office would be able to let this come out and them actually publish it.
Does he have patents under his alternate name also? His original name?
He's got quite a few different patents. He went on to... No, that was the other guy that built the hide. I can't remember.
I seen some that said related to like a hearing aid.
Yeah, he wrote a couple of different books, and he was a parapsychologist as well. Wait, I got that wrong.
Yeah.
No, it's parapsychologist. He was an inventor, and he was a physician.
Oh. Smart dude.
Angles of the valence bonds, and yeah, it connects a lot with both the cymatics, Walter Russell's work, and Stan Meyer's as well. Probably also Victor Schauberger's would be similar stuff too. It's all with the geometries of them.
Is Walter Russell the guy about structured water, I believe?
No, that is Jared Pollard. Jared Pollard, I believe.
Something like that. Okay.
Fourth state.
What was the other guy's name again?
Stan Meyer?
No, the other one I just mentioned. That not the Pollock guy, the other person you just mentioned.
Victor Schauberger or Stanley Meyer, Eric Pollard.
Oh, Schauberger. Okay, yeah. Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. Okay, I know who you're talking about now. Oh, man, there's so many people in this stuff.
There truly is.
Yeah, he was the German guy, wasn't he?
Schauberger, yeah. But the one that Matt, that you were originally saying, what was the German guy this is his design?
Henry Puharich.
Henry Puharich.
Okay.
Puharich.
Amplitude modulated 90% carrier sine wave.
Yeah, so that's just your carrier wave, and then when you go through it, it shows the carrier wave, and then it's modulated to be able to do that that certain degree of separation whenever you send the signal through. There you go. Go up just a little bit. There you go. So there's notes on all of this as well, like figure 11, and it's going to figure 9 and the one up above it. But 1.3 volts is all it takes with this carrier and modulated signal to be able to send it through and separate this.
Right, yeah, like just this is the key breakthrough stuff right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially a exponential level of over unity between the input of electrical energy needed going in, and then the self-organization, the power of the, I guess, implosion or not combustion of the hydrogen or the HHO back in the fuel reaction, as well as the heat that you get coming out of the reaction compared to just that small frequency and waves in, right?
Mm-hmm. So, and that kind of goes back to that video where we have seen on the oscilloscope the square wave that they were putting in, and he specifically went over that as well.
Oh, exactly.
Check out the patent cited. The number one is Stan Meyer, and a lot of interesting others.
Absolutely. Oh, okay. Aaron Salter, this one. Sorry. This one, Simon, you wanted?
Oh, cool.
Yes, that's the one. Thank you. This is the guy who was shot at the Tops grocery store.
That's the guy that was shot during the Boston Marathon, right?
No, not Boston Marathon. So this was recently.
You got your hydrogen
mass shooting.
for your electrolysis.
He was working as the security guard.
You got your batteries, your water. I want you to notice that you can get a shot of showers. There's no water in watch yourself. Okay. Tank is empty. All right, I'm gonna put this back on. We're gonna need water in a minute. This is a agitator. So we're gonna do 4 experiments today for the patent examiners. The first one, you do need electrolysis, but what my system has done is taken advantage of the residue that's produced by the electrolysis. So we're gonna actually start this vehicle without any electrolysis. The second one, we're going to fill the water tank with water. And again, we're going to be able to start it without electrolysis and run this engine. How long, we'll find out. Then we're going to turn the hydrogen generator on, and we're going to let that produce some gas. And then we're going to see how long the engine runs with the hydrogen only. And then the fourth one, we're going to use the combination of the hydrogen generator, the agitator, and we're going to see how long it runs together. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to start the engine up on gas first. And I'm going to initiate the agitator, and then we're going to go to the front, and we're going to switch the gas, hydrogen gas on, and the regular fuel off. Okay?
I'm going to pause for a second. Go ahead.
What's he calling the agitator? Electrolyzer?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just gonna start it.
I believe so, but he said it didn't have any water in it.
Notice gas is in an off position, and it's running on no electrolysis, so it's running on the hydrogen. It's running on the hydrogen right now. It's running on the hydrogen right now. You shut the gas. The gas is in the shut off position right there. Gas in the shut off position. Time this. Okay. So we're just gonna see how long it. Again, there's no electrolysis. Okay, now it's not running off of gas fumes. No, there's no gas fumes. There's no gas fumes.
Okay, so I started I mean, it's been running for a little bit, but I started a timer right now.
Okay.
So what we have here is the gas valve. The gas valve is shut off. That's the gas valve in the rear. It's in the off position. And the vehicle is running on pure hydrogen. That's the extra alternator. Fuel air intake. And this is the valve for the hydrogen to engage. We go out to the back of the vehicle and get some information from Mr. Salter. Okay, it's been running for how long?
It's been running for a minute.
The noise is
17
horrible,
seconds.
Simon.
I would say it was running for 30 seconds prior. So
That's with no water. It's running on pure residue. We suspect it's hydrogen residue.
If he says residue, what is the residue?
Yeah, I was learning the same thing.
Like a gas or like the breakdown? Simon, do you know?
I think when he says residue, he's referring to the gas that was produced and that is just sitting in the tank and like in the lines leading to the engine and stuff.
That makes sense.
I see what you're saying. So the leftover from when he had the electrolysis running.
Right, and then if he's running the electrolysis after and there's a difference in the amount of
Oh,
time
the
that it
pure
runs.
hydrogen he had stored. I got you.
Hey, will hydrogen turn the plastic? I've heard of the hydrogen embrittlement. Will that turn the plastic brittle and make it break after a while?
Depends on the type, I believe. Like,
I mean, if it's a wear and tear component, then you know, just design it with the intent of replacing it as it needs to.
Right. I didn't know if that was like a really long-term thing, or if you like ran it for a week and it fell apart. Are we hearing a water pump? Is that what the buzzing was?
I think there were quite a few relays that were humming in there as well.
There was a few different pumps, definitely, because there would have also been an air pump, I think, for pushing the hydrogen out too. And sorry, that was just getting crazy loud into everything. Link is posted in the live chat. I wanted to show a little bit of a laser saber or laser hacker video of atmospheric power company, Ion Power Group, where they're actually moving motors, harvesting and from the atmosphere.
I'd like to see somebody make a high power motor. That Oleg guy, he's made like a 1 horsepower electrostatic motor.
So this is like 11-year-old one where they've developed
so this
it over
video
the
is going
last
to
decade.
feature my recent at the Ion Power Group's research and test facility.
Yeah, this is the
So
single
Ion
strand
Power
of graphene
Group
oxide, right?
saw one of my videos on YouTube with my Atmo motor, and they.
Sorry, what was that?
Are these the guys that have the single strand of graphene oxide and they're collecting all of the static or the positively charged ions in the air?
Could be.
It is. Yep. It just
Yeah, right at the top, right there. Yeah.
Yeah, they have one single strand and it's in the lower atmosphere. Now, what's going on with the FAA and everything of that nature here come September is now even more airspace of ours is going to be restricted.
Riding back and forth.
Right.
So, like on drones and things of that nature, you're only going to be able to fly at an approved AMA ground because all these corporations want to be able to start flying drones for deliveries and things of that nature. So the air isn't even ours. They're telling you when and where you can, fly a toy.
That's going to be a mess. I
So
remember the
that
FAA had
right
like
there, it was at 500 feet and above that they control that airspace, but now it's going even lower.
You know what's worse? The police had a permit for something like 3,000 drones back in 2013, 2014 to take an effect in like 2018.
Well,
like,
they have it over in China already.
Yeah.
They have police drones with facial recognition.
I don't have a problem with it in emergency, but I don't want thousands of them flying around all the time.
Okay, so this video is going to feature my recent visit at the Ion Power Group's research and test facility. So Ion Power Group saw one of my videos on YouTube with my Atmo motor, and they contacted me and we got to writing back and forth about atmospheric electricity and the Atmo motor. And I found out that they had carried on the research of Dr. Oleg Jeffimenko. They corresponded with him before he passed away, and then they carried on with this research here. And you can see their ion collector towers. They've got these 4 poles here. They're at about 130 feet in height. Strung between those 4 poles, they have a wire, so it forms a large square if you were looking down on it. And connected all along that wire are what they call ion collectors. And we'll get into that in more detail in a minute. Okay, so Ion Power Group has been testing this technology here at this test site for about the last 10 years. And they've really been flying under the radar because, I really keep my ear to the ground and try to connect with and understand, what's going on with this type of technology because it's something I'm interested in experimenting with myself. I never heard of these guys until they contacted me and wanted to test the Atmo motor with their setup. So I was very, very impressed with the amount of progression and progress they've made with this technology over the last 10 years. Now they want to take it to the next level. They want to test the scalability of this thing. They want to scale this up to create an actual atmospheric electricity power station. They're going to try crowdfunding. They got an Indiegogo campaign going on. I told them I put a link to that in this video description, and I went ahead and made a donation to their work myself. And let me this up and really test the scalability of this whole thing. So that's the reason I wanted to go ahead and be part, small part.
That looks like a decent amount of.
Okay, it's an established scientific fact that up in the air, there are lots of particles that are electrically charged floating around up there. They're caused by any number of circumstances, but we won't go into that detail now. But the fact is that they are there and they are electrically charged. What we've done is we have given them a place to couple to very readily through a strip of carbon, graphite, graphene, which has millions upon millions of microscopic conductive points all over it. And as anybody knows from high school and college physics, electric fields tend to gather and be attracted to points, the corona effect. And so we have these collectors waving up in the air about 130 feet right now. And they harvest around 2 kilovolts night and day, good weather, bad. Actually, during bad weather, it will spike upwards of, I've measured up to 250,000 volts before, but typical it'll go up to around 30 kilovolts or 40 kilovolts. And we trap that in capacitors, and then we can use that as usable energy. Now, what we want to do in the next phase is we want to go up to around 600 to 800 feet. So that will be constantly pulling in between 10 kilovolts through 12 kilovolts night and day. And then when it spikes, it'll go up into the hundreds of thousands of kilovolts. And that is all containable energy that we can make use of to do any number of things, including make hydrogen gas from water, spin motors, and eventually on a larger scale, even help power the grid.
Awesome. Okay, so it sounds like the use of graphene is fairly critical in the future of both atmospheric electricity harvesting as well as new capacitor technologies. You want to explain a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Graphene is the most conductive material that man has ever created. It is going to revolutionize pretty much everything having to do with electronics and energy storage. And we have filed patents worldwide for the use of graphene for ion harvesting. And it should give us, in my opinion, an order of magnitude greater efficiency in the harvesting process.
Okay, so you've got patents pending. Now, you of course encourage the experimentation and replication of this technology with folks like myself in the do-it-yourself maker type crowd, right?
Absolutely. The more people that can say, yeah, I've put these ion collectors up in the air and have measured kilovolts off it, the more the word will get out and the more collective research will go into this, and the quicker mankind can benefit from this amazing phenomenon that is proven science now.
Awesome. Very good.
All right. A genius named Tesla filed a patent back in, I believe it was 1901, because he noticed the phenomenon that if he put a conductor up in the air, that if he left it there, it would develop a charge.
Mm-hmm.
And so he filed a patent on that.
Yep.
And of course, Tesla is responsible for the majority, at least in my opinion, of our modern technology. So the technology that we have developed is really an extension of Tesla's discovery back in 1901. Our twist and our advancement is that we have discovered that if you put up carbon graphite graphene, it increases the harvesting efficiency quite a bit.
Awesome.
This is the drop line coming down from the ion collectors outside. It's rated at 20 kilovolt insulation. And many times, especially during peak ion periods, sparks will punch through this insulation and shoot to the wooden wall and cause burn marks in the wall and smoke to come out. And so I've placed this whiteboard in the way, and that seems to help the discharge problem a little bit. Of course, the real solution is getting some better wire, which when we get a budget, I plan on doing.
Awesome. So as we talked earlier, you mentioned that you had corresponded with Dr. Oleg Jefamenko, and basically everything he showed in his research is legit and pans out.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The doctor was way ahead of his time, decades ahead of his time. And in a way, we are picking up part of his research and advancing it forward.
Awesome.
This thing's seen better days. All right. This is our patented down converter. It takes high voltage energy that's developed by the ion collectors and steps it down to usable low voltage on a small scale. What we're going to do when we get a budget, we're going to improve upon it as far as larger components and whatnot so that we can handle the larger volumes of energy we're bringing in now and be able to power standard everyday devices like computers and stereos and television sets.
What makes it taste so good?
All right, that was enough of that one. Sick commercials. And we are 2 hours and 10 minutes in, and Mr. Andreas Sertis has not showed up. When about an hour ago, he messaged me saying, I'm almost there. So maybe he fell asleep, and it's time to essentially call her a night, I think. We are live on Real Rife Technologies on YouTube, Matthew Rife's channel, which I'm posting in the live chat right now, as well as my two channels and Zertis channel. We will be doing another episode and full episodes on electroculture coming up, I guess, this weekend. Mr. Mark, do you have any final words? And Julia, dear, we have to do an episode soon on here we go, this one, the Sumerian tablets, and join us for a Egypt in America stream.
Oh, hey, BurnEye, I left some links on there for the electrostatic motor books from the Oleg guy that was mentioned.
Yeah.
And also, there's some stuff called Corona wire that's very similar to that wire used in printers. That might be easier to get.
Which type of wire?
It's called corona wire. It's what's used inside of copiers and printers to put electrostatic charge on the paper.
Gotcha.
It has a coating on it too that's supposed to help it emit electrons. I used to work on copiers, so that's how I know about it.
Is it in what's part of the printer? It's not by
Oh,
chance the
it charges up the drum, and it also charges up the paper. It's just basically just a high voltage wire that's near it with usually around 2,000 to 12,000 volt charge. And when the drum is charged up, it pulls the toner onto the drum once it gets the image. And then when it charges up the paper, it sucks the toner back over to the paper with the image. And then there's two rollers together that's called a hot and pressure roller that basically melts it into the paper.
It's functionally the same thing as powder coating.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's a powder that's
it could be
it's iron oxide encapsulated in another material, so it's both magnetic and electrostatic for the toner and the developer.
Nice.
But the wires, the important thing there, you can find these in old any old laser printer.
Right, so it's worth scrapping, and I'm going to be doing an episode strictly, or a series, I think, once a month of stripping like motors, like printers, computers, hard drives, stuff like that, of how you can get the magnets, the wires, and useful stuff, components for experimenting with.
Also on air cleaners.
Air cleaners.
The electrostatic air cleaners.
Oh, I see what you're. Yeah, those things break down all the time. So there's useful stuff in that.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to fix. So it's but I see them in Goodwills and stuff a lot. But yeah, they're like way overpriced for what they are. Just a few plates and a high voltage wire.
Yeah, everything is these days. Matt, any last words? Julia, any last words? Luke, are you asleep?
Dude, I'm watching Luke sleeping.
I was too. I'm just sitting here watching it because the sun come up in England.
Did you hear him last night? Oh yeah, Bernie, you hopped on last night.
Good morning, UK. That's hilarious. The sun has
Luke,
rise.
we you. We should try to affect his visions and dreams right now.
Oh, damn straight, like Julia. That's going to be a part of ongoing experiments in
Like
series.
the sleeping prophet, like Edgar Casey style. Yeah.
You got it, sister. And then try to intervene his dreams through remote viewing and conscious group focus, I guess. Last couple things, Mr. Wright. I've got so there's like some of these the theta hertz and stuff. What do you recommend for like sleeping and playing some specific hertz through the coils to help get into deep sleep?
Do you have a link for that?
So let me explain what these are. These are brainwaves, and whenever you go to sleep, you go through 5 stages of sleep. So in order, they go getting tired, laying down, closing your eyes, and then you go into what's called delta waves. So delta waves is whenever people sleep talk, they sleepwalk, they have restless leg syndrome, and you never get that much rest. Like you're only partially rested because you never hit theta waves, which is rapid eye movement, REM sleep. So I would say to work high, go from beta down to alpha, down to delta, and then theta. Wait, why is your theta 8 to 4? You're muted.
We lost your audio.
You're muted, Bernie.
Muted.
There we go. Sorry, it was a sheet my mom gave me from something she participated in a little while ago. So I was getting your opinion on it. So you're saying the theta is off. What should that be?
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, I could be wrong here, but I think the theta waves are like 0.4 to 1.4.
Okay, I will Sarah Esra mindful exposures.
But if you just go, if you go
down,
down on them, like if you start it at like 20 hertz, 19, 18, 17, 16, and go all the way down to like 1 hertz, and that'll put you into REM sleep.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So you're just lowering it, the cycle down, transitioning your brainwaves on technologically, physically through it, as opposed to trying to get your brain to operate onto them on its own. That actually is fascinating.
I found a similar page that wiki I just put on there. I thought it had the same thing. Didn't.
So for the different sequences, Matt, for the coils.
Yeah, how are you doing that?
You can make your own playlist on there as well. If you hit the menu on the top left, then you can go to my playlist or something like that, my player, and you can make your own playlist and you can step it down.
Is this from the Rife machine?
Oh, the paper's right. Okay, so I'm wrong on it.
Is this coming from the Rife machine or?
Yes.
The Rife coils, yeah.
How can it go so low?
These are natural brainwaves.
Yeah, but the coil for that to go that low, how does it go that low? Is it like pulsing it? Or?
It is alternating current, and alternating is always switching direction. And whenever they flip flop, that's what creates the EM. It's what creates the EMFs. So, and I can't really make any claims, but in theory,
I understand.
In theory, that it kind of sends these out, and it's just a slower hertz rating. It's slower pulses per second.
You know, you can always talk about your farm animals because that's perfectly legal.
Oh yeah,
Isn't
it crazy that a veterinarian can make claims and do all this, and they can use this technology, but it's illegal for a doctor to use it on a human?
Right. It's the same for the. I've seen several that was using the pulsed EMF for healing.
Yeah,
they used it on the horses and had great results.
Yeah, it's been growing a lot, but PEMF, in my opinion, is just less effective.
Is that like more like a shotgun approach to where it just puts out too many frequencies, or? You think?
So if you want to be able to resonate with one specific thing within the body of a dog, then you want to keep on hitting that. Now, PEMF, they claim it was created by NASA scientists, all of this, and it has like a certain pattern it goes in. Like 60, 40, 64, and it keeps on jumping around. It's really odd stuff. I just never did get into it. I never saw like a benefit from going directly right to what you want to go to.
Right. I always wondered what they did in orbit because I remember seeing this experiment from the 70s that I had never been able to find again, but it was talking about how they had people underground, and after the second day, they started feeling really horrible. And because they were shielded from the Earth's natural human residence, and then when they turned it back on, I'm guessing they must have had like coils or something in there. Then the people started feeling better again. Well, I haven't been able to find the study if anybody knows where that study is. But
in the 60s, they started using this with astronauts because all the astronauts would come back sick, and they would
that's
come
what I was
back
wondering.
dead.
Yeah, is there something on board that simulates that?
Yep, they use PEMF every single day on the ISS.
So what is it? Just tuned to the 6.83, or?
I'm sure they use a lot of different frequencies,
right?
But at the same time, I don't really know. Like, I can't confirm what they use on frequencies or what they don't use.
I never heard that mentioned, but I mean, if if it makes you feel sick after the second and third day, and some of them up there for 6 months. It's got to be making a big effect, making them feel pretty horrible, I would think. Plus, I was always also wondering if it didn't have something to do with the bone loss, because I know that they said you start having bone loss almost immediately.
Yeah, and that's because you're leaving the natural EMFs of the earth, and you have muscle loss, you have bone density that's breaking down, all of these many different things, and like people are just coming back sick, and so they used PEMF in the 60s, and they never brought this out.
Man.
The ISS is green screen. Well, the ISS is actually still within our Earth's atmosphere. It's not in space.
That must really mess with all your circadian rhythms.
Yeah, so just imagine if they did go to space and, they didn't have PEMF, because it's still within our atmosphere. They're probably still feeling effects from the Earth. Now, Earth's magnetic field, according to these same scientists, that it creates more of a like a barrier from the sun's energy waves that are coming in. It encompasses the earth, and if it wasn't for the EMFs, then the sun's rays and the energy bouncing off would just destroy the earth.
Right.
Yeah, it's in low earth orbit. Thank you, Mario.
One of the things I was always wondering about, I've seen a couple articles that said you can pick up the 60 hertz hum in low earth orbit. And I was thinking, if you can pick it up that far away, maybe, yes, it's a low level compared to the Earth's field, but maybe that's contributing to the reduction of the Earth's magnetic field. It's degausing it a little bit. And maybe it's not, too good for their health either, because it's drowning it out. That's just a guess, but,
All right, sorry, I was just looking at some different frequencies there. I'm going to play with this, and we will go more into it on the next one. We're putting everybody to sleep because it's late, and love y'all. We're 2 hours and 22 minutes in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, Bernie, when will be the next time?
Wednesday, maybe Thursday.
Okay.
We'll see y'all.
There.
Ta-ta.